President Trump spoken to the Attorney General about this investigation into the origins of the Russia probe. Has he been briefed?
I only know what I read, which is that it's now a criminal investigation, and I think as they started to uncover facts and evidence, that they decided to make it a criminal investigation. Again, if somebody has nothing to hide about what they were doing leading up to the 2016 election, then they have nothing to worry about. But I'm sure that each and every one of you who for over 2 years covered methodically and regularly the Mueller investigation, the $35 million in taxpayer money, the 500 witnesses, the 1.3 million, pieces of paper, the documents, the 2,300 subpoenas or what. I mean, I've got to go back and look at all the stats. I'm sure that you'll have the patience and the professionalism to allow this process to take hold and unfold. You know what I was guilty of in 2016, as goes the campaign, being the campaign manager for a major political upset. But were other people at the highest levels of the DOJ and the FBI using that office and betraying the public trust to try to interfere in the 2016 election? Was there obstruction of justice? Was there destruction of evidence? I think we all have an interest in knowing that.
Has the President spoken to the Attorney General about this edit?
I just don't know that. I don't know that.
Do you know if there was any notification that there was an official shift to a criminal investigation?
One more time. Start over.
Have you guys received any official notification, anyone at the White House, of the shift into it becoming a
I haven't seen that. I saw the news reports yesterday.
Kellyanne, the president has several times mentioned the Ukrainian aspect of this investigation that he wanted assistance from Ukraine on. Does the president believe Paul Manafort was framed, and do you believe Paul Manafort was framed?
I'm sorry, what part of the investigation? Are you talking about the Durham or the other?
Durham, the one that he asked Ukrainian President Zelensky to assist with.
The Durham investigation?
The one that A.G. Barr and presumably
just so we're
Durham
clear, because we're talking about different investigations.
Does he, and do you believe that Paul Manafort was framed?
I haven't thought about any of that in a very long time, so I don't have a comment on that, and I certainly haven't discussed it with the president in quite a while. I don't think that's what Paul Manafort was indicted on and convicted of. But I want to say something about the call, because I've been thinking about this. There were 2 presidents on that call on July 25th, and I'm not sure that we've spoken enough about what President Zelensky was saying. He was talking about how he ran successfully on an anti-corruption agenda, and so absolutely the Ukrainian people have a vested interest in their new president making good on his promise to root out corruption, but America does too. We're watching, and we hope that that's the case also. But as for Manafort, I really haven't thought about that in a long time.
The reason he was asking about that is because part of the allegations that his attorney, Rove Giuliani, has made is that the Ukrainians framed Paul Manafort. So if the president's asking, then obviously he must believe that Paul Manafort was framed.
No. Here's where we get into dangerous territory, and I made a statement about this in a different context yesterday. When you characterize somebody else's intent, feeling, beliefs, thoughts, actions, it's dangerous. You're reporters. That's not reporting respectfully. So you don't know what the president believes. You don't know why he said what he said or didn't say what he didn't say.
What his attorney has said.
Fine, but that's got nothing to do with that call
he's mentioned
necessarily.
Alleged Ukrainian interference several times. So what else could he be talking about?
So what the president did talk about in that call very plainly was 2016. He didn't mention 2020, he mentioned 2016. And it was the day, I think the context here is very important, ladies and gentlemen. It is literally hours after Director Mueller, Special Counsel Mueller, testified. And the sequel was as bad as the original when it comes to the Mueller testimony and the Mueller report.
So, are you being considered for chief of staff?
I would highly doubt it, because we have a chief of staff, and I think he's doing a great job.
And do you think the whistleblower should come forward?
Mick Mulvaney's doing a very good job as chief of staff. I made that very clear to the president, to Mick Mulvaney, to the vice president, to anybody who's listening. And I will say this. The handful or so of people inside that building who regularly interface with the press or with the public through the press, we have a different set of responsibilities than people who never do it or rarely do it. And so we should all, myself included, take a step back and look at the whole body of work that the 5 or 6 people who go on TV or do press briefings or speak to you out in the driveway trying to be helpful, to the whole body of work of what we do, and that begins with the chief of staff. His responsibilities are many, and if you look at the job he's doing as chief of staff, I think it's highly commendable.
Kellyanne, you had this.
Can you
Kellyanne,
give us a status update on the progress with the first part of the deal with China? There have been some reports that there are still some sticking points. Can you give us an update?
Well, there are, and I think what the president has said and what Ambassador Lighthizer has said and Secretary Mnuchin stands, which is that the president was very happy last week or 2 weeks ago now, I think last week, part one of the deal was struck that had a lot to do with agriculture, a little bit to do with technology transfers, but we know about intellectual property theft, technology, forced technology transfers. This is a very complicated deal because you're talking about the two largest economies in the world, and you're talking about decades of America and American interests, American farmers, American consumers, America herself being on the losing side of our trade deficit and our trade deals with China. So this will take a while for that battleship to turn around completely, but it's headed in the right direction. And I know that the trade team is working arduously on Capitol Hill, certainly with their Chinese counterparts at getting the other pieces done. And I think one event that's coming up is President Xi and President Trump meeting up. I guess it's in December. They'll be meeting up correct, and so that you can expect this to be talked about leading up to that too.
And
Is the president hoping to sign the deal at that time with President Xi?
Well, it depends what the deal is. I mean, it depends what the deal says. It always depends what the deal says. The one thing I will tell you about the president, the trade deal, and just generally, is he takes the long view. He's not in a rush to do the wrong thing. And if you see, I think past his prologue, if you see what was done with Korea, you see what was done with Japan, these things take time. But the deal gets knitted together over a series of actions, a series of conversations and negotiations, and then it's executed upon. Speaking of trade deals, we really need Congress to put the USMCA to a vote. I know they're so busy investigating the next thing, but they really need to.
When will the White House actually trigger that countdown?
Well, we're ready. I mean, the president took action over a year ago now, and I know that Ambassador Lighthizer and his team have been up there consistently. So it would be terrific if we can get Speaker Pelosi to schedule a vote even this fall. I know it was talked about. I know that many of the members, the Democratic members, including if not especially the 31 who are in Trump-Pence districts, want that to get to a vote. And it's just good for America. It's good for American farmers, American industry, American workers, American manufacturers. We need to modernize NAFTA and get the USMCA voted on. Somebody else. I'm sorry.
You guys have had a great coordinated messaging campaign on Drug Take Back Day. Why can't you guys do something like that on impeachment? There is no coherent message coming out of the White House on impeachment.
Wow. Well, first of all, let me talk about Take Back Day. I really wouldn't want to conflate the two because National Prescription Take Back Day, which is tomorrow, twice a year, that has yielded 4.6 million pounds of pills since we got here in the 5 that we've had. Not even 4.6 million pills, 4.6 million pounds of pills. So that tells you that the crisis is a crisis of demand and supply. There's just too much out there. But as I had the privilege of being up on Capitol Hill with the First Lady this week as she took her first solo trip there to talk about National Take Back Day and the 1-year anniversary of the Support Act, which clearly has been the most significant bipartisan piece of legislation. Thank you, and God rest your soul, Chairman Cummings, for all the work that he did to get that done. He was a pivotal player in getting that bipartisan legislation passed. It has mitigated harm to Americans. It has saved American lives. And frankly, it's why I'm here, part of the reason I'm here. And so I would never conflate the two, respectfully, and I don't think you meant to, Paula. So on messaging coordination and impeachment, what I know that you've seen reports that a number of different individuals and offices meet on a daily basis. You've seen the press secretary out speaking about it. I've spoken modestly about it. The chief of staff has spoken about it. But most importantly, the president has told you exactly what he thinks about it. And I think because this is an impeachment is an act by Congress, it's an inquiry by Congress, it's incredibly important to hear from members of Congress and the Senate. And so just yesterday, you see Republican senators coming forward and urging, if not warning, their House colleagues to make sure that we have due process and a fair and open process. And they're saying that not just because they're a bunch of people, they're actually they're the upper chamber who will then have jurisdiction over whatever the House does or doesn't do. And so they're saying, we expect the process that then we will look at the fruits of that process to have been fair and open. Many people are upset with the process, Paula, as you know. You probably have more rights if you get a parking ticket or a moving violation in terms of presenting evidence, disputing evidence, presenting witnesses, statements, challenging other people's witnessing, cross-examine them. If people are quoting the Andrew Johnson impeachment, you know it's silly. There's nobody alive now that was alive when Andrew Johnson was impeached, but a lot of us, especially the older people, were alive when Clinton was impeached and when Nixon was facing it.
These president claims have been flavored vapes, mint and menthol, or no?
So I think HHS and FDA, who has jurisdiction over that under the Tobacco Control Act, has jurisdiction over e-cigarettes. Right. That's different than vaping, by the way. They are coming out with guidance soon, so you have to wait for that. The main concern coming out of this White House is about kids, is about youth. And what we see in the news that you now have self-reported, close to 5 million self-reported youth in this country have said that they use e-cigarettes or vaping products. The public health benefit of e-cigarettes is that adults who are addicted to are using combustibles will come down from those combustibles by using a less harmful product that still delivers nicotine but without the carcinogens, e-cigarettes. So that's a great public health benefit for the 8 million or so, I think, adults I've read that use e-cigarettes. The unintended consequence, I hope we can all agree, is all the youth using it now. And when the president said on September 11th in the Oval Office, it's come at us really fast. It happened quickly. That is true. The First Lady preceded that conversation with a tweet 2 days earlier that was specifically about youth. So I think the conversation is less about flavors and more about adults and youth. And we recognize that menthol tastes like, I recognize menthol tastes like tobacco. Many adults like menthol. Many adults like flavors. And so we're going to have to wait to see what guidance HHS and FDA, who have jurisdiction over this, do. But I would just tell you something that I didn't learn until this summer, and it shocked me. By definition, these products, e-cigarettes, are illegal. At the towards the spring, I think, or the end of the Obama administration, they temporarily made them legal as a way to try to help the adults come down from the combustibles. We in the Trump administration have continued that. So it straddled both administrations. I think what the Secretary of HHS has said is, if you take the products off the market, you want the manufacturers to come back and apply for why they should be on the market. I think they would have 30 days or so to do that. But you can check exactly what Secretary Azar said. But we're waiting on that guidance. The difference is kids and adults.
When should we expect the guidance on these?
You want to ask HHS.
In his publicly released opening remarks, Bill Taylor lays out a quid pro quo with Ukraine. Does the White House have any response to that, any counter to that? Why hasn't there been a reaction to the substance?
There's been plenty of reaction, but respectfully, you guys tend to attach these long superhero capes on whoever is dinging the. But it's true, though. You do. I can think of a few. It's close to home. But let me just say something about the Taylor statement. That's one person's testimony. There's been other testimony. I believe that Ambassador Sondland, again, I'm getting this from public reports, including your own, Ambassador Sondland made very clear in a text to Ambassador Taylor that that was not the president's intent. There was no quid pro quo intended. I think intent matters. So I think intent matters. And when people say this is what the president intended, this is what the president believes, this is how I characterize Kellyanne's feelings, you don't know that. So let's take a deep breath and stop pretending we know what's in somebody else's heart, mind, or soul, and just wait to see where the facts take us. I'm with Nancy Pelosi prior to her capitulating to the angry mob. I'm with what Nancy Pelosi said for 9 months, which is, let's let the investigation, let's see where the facts take us. Let's see where the facts take us. We had patience all during the Mueller investigation for years, literally, to not just conclude after any one witness testified one way or the other. So there are more witnesses who will come forward. We don't have an open process right now. Of all the times you have to suffer through seeing Adam Schiff on camera in the last several years, lying to all of you and to the American public about ample evidence of collusion, hiding in plain sight. We will indict the president. There's a conspiracy. Lied through some really goofball, oddball, weirdo parody account. I think he should be on oath if he ever goes on your networks. I know he's going on one of yours this weekend. But
So
no, so I'm saying, so what I'm saying is,
follow.
why not have all that out in the open?
So understood what you're
No,
saying.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It was the Mueller investigation about substance or process for 2 years when you covered it. Process.
Could you at least say whether or
You
not
don't
you
get to the
think-
in a democracy, in a constitutional democracy, respectfully, you do not get to substance until you go through process.
So
Do you want to skip or
do you
subvert the
think-
process?
Do you think
Well,
the
aren't the people
whistleblower
running
should
into the
testify?
steps
Why not
subverting the
have the
process?
whistleblower
Would you say
testify?
Republicans
Do
are
you
being
think the
patient
whistleblower
with
should
this
testify
process?
then?
They're running into the
I mean,
secure
should the
room.
whistleblower come forward and testify?
I think the whistleblower's account should either be evidenced or challenged. That's my entire point. The whistleblower aside, we in this country are supposed to be able to confront witnesses, produce our own witnesses, challenge evidence, produce our
That's
own
not how the
evidence.
Whistleblower Act works, right?
Now talk about the Whistleblower Act.
Well, that's what I'm asking about.
No, but you're asking about that. But do you think that's what's going on right now behind
Well,
closed doors?
I'm
I don't.
asking
You
you
seem
the
to be
question.
expressing frustration with the process.
I'm
while
not
also
frustrated at
advocating
all.
Patience with it. It's
No.
confusing.
No, it's not. It's not confusing at all. I'm not confused. Listen, you don't need to call me confusing at all. What is? It's not frustration. It's consternation that the same people, yourselves included, and many of your allies on Capitol Hill, who wanted us to wait for 2+ years and spend tens of millions of dollars and put this country through a big process in search of substance that never came, that somehow you don't want to apply the same here. I know we're running perilously close to the 2020 election, and I'm sure the 2020 candidates soon will be very upset that this is sucking up all of the airtime and oxygen. You had a couple other 0%ers drop out recently. I guess they had to. And so I get it. But look, if I believe that the Democrats thought they knew how to beat Donald Trump at the ballot box, they would stop what they're doing on Capitol Hill, on the debate stage, everywhere else, and they would just focus on defeating him. They have no idea how to do that as far as I can see. So they're trying to undo the results of 2016 and interfere with the results of 2020. I have a lot of faith in the will and the wisdom of Americans, and they see this for what it is, which is a process that's currently happening in secret, away from the cameras. Adam Schiff loves being in front of the camera, except for the one time the public can actually benefit from having the cameras where Adam Schiff is. Last one.
But the Republicans make those rules. The Republicans make those rules in
Everybody's described
2015.
Ambassador Taylor as a very upright,
Who is everybody?
Well, his bio is fairly...
His bio is okay. So everybody in his bio.
solid. Would you
No, in
agree
other
with
words,
that?
but this is what I mean. Everybody, his bio. It's just,
Okay,
I just
okay.
need you to explain yourself.
Forget
We put in this
the-
White House, we put a semicolon in the wrong place, and it lives forever. But you can say whatever you want.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Sorry about that word, though. Take away that word. Do you think that he's a credible character?
What I think is that we have many witnesses
Is he?
to testify. What I think is credible is a text from Ambassador Sondland saying there's no quid pro quo.
Ambassador Taylor credible?
It was
I
dictated
wasn't
by the
in there.
president,
I'm reading a
Kellyanne.
statement. I wasn't there. But don't you think that witnesses, that people have a right to cross-examine witnesses?
Well, that's
You
what
live in a
I'm asking
democracy.
At a trial.
You're never going to get an argument from me that people who are being investigated have a right to cross-examine witnesses, have a right to present their own evidence. Ken Starr had to submit to that. Ken Starr and I think 9 others had to submit to
What about the
cross-examination.
With the DOJ, you just said if people have nothing to hide with the
I didn't
DOJ.
threaten. Whoa! I never threatened anyone. Don't use
You
those
said you want
words.
to cover her personal life.
No.
That seems like you applied
No. I
threat.
didn't threat. It's not a threat. I never threatened her.
So
Don't
what does
use.
that mean, cover
Excuse
her
me.
personal life?
Don't use that word
Okay.
if it's not true. Do not.
Well, there's
If I
reports of
threaten
Trump
somebody,
allies
you'll know
compiling
it.
documents
If I
covering her
threaten
personal
someone,
life.
you'll know it. Okay. And so don't do that.
So what does that mean?
Don't
cover
do
her
that.
personal life?
I think it's very
It
obvious.
seems obvious as a threat to dig
It's
into
not
her personal life.
dig in. Who cares? You don't even know her name. You guys don't even. You don't.
Her name was
You
Caitlin,
just. Well, now you know her name. I still didn't get an answer from her, which was the essential question, which was, why do you call yourself a breaking news reporter if you're not writing breaking news and you're not even being a reporter? Don't characterize the way I feel without ever having met me, talked to me, or called me for.
what does that
Excuse me,
mean?
don't
I'm
interrupt me,
asking you, what
or
did it
call
mean,
me
cover
for
her
a story. No.
I
Don't
called.
characterize my. Don't she characterize my feelings? And I said, why would you characterize my feelings without ever having met me, talked to me, asked me questions? She's not like the rest of you. She's not here at the White House doing the beat, out here asking questions. She doesn't pick up the phone. She doesn't. I said, have we ever spoken? No. And then I said, why would you do that? Why? There are millions of ways to describe me. Why did you choose that way to describe me? Why are you derivatively writing what another outlet wrote? Where's your original reporting? She had no answer for that, still has no answer for that. She ended up writing an article where she's got one of my kids' names wrong and 2 of their Age is wrong. Lazy. So I was just asking, why would you? And I never raised my. I was just said, why would you?
What does that mean? Cover her personal life.
No.
You said that.
Right.
What does
So
it mean?
don't use the word threaten and don't use the word investigate and stop being so silly. Honestly, stop being so silly.
mean?
It's
That's
silly.
Are
what it
never
means.
Trump or scum. Are never Trump or scum.
So I would use different words, but here's what I would say. I think the president's point is legitimate in that the idea that people whoever they are, Republicans, Democrats, people who are unaffiliated, aren't even registered to vote, members of the media, members of Capitol Hill, whoever it is, the idea that we're still trying to undo an election result from nearly 3 years ago and by extension interfere in the next election, it just seems very anti-democratic. And so that's not never Trumpers anti-democratic. It's just, what is the point here? In other words, argue the facts. Argue that you don't like the tax cut or you don't like the dereg agenda, even though the dereg agenda and the tax cut have aided millions of Americans. Say, gee, 150 plus federal judges on the courts is 5 too many or 5 too shy of too many. But I don't see that. I see personal attacks. I see presumptive negativity and imputing people motives and feelings that you have no idea that they have because you don't bother to ask.
I'm asking
That's
you,
not
what does that
reporting.
mean?
That's not reporting. And I have said many times, there wasn't one thing I said in that call that I haven't said publicly, including, by the way, here in the driveway to all of you. And you know that because you're actually here in the driveway and I talk to you publicly. But there wasn't anything, I didn't say that call was on or off the record because I can care less. She must have thought it was off the record because then she asked, quote, would you like to put any of this on the record? So why the Washington Examiner came out and, off record, what are they even talking about? Again, don't impute things to me. Don't impute things to me. I asked her how she's familiar with my feelings without ever having met me.
I just didn't know what the road
What
was.
does cover her
The
personal
White
life
House said initially it was seeking the identity of the whistleblower. Are you still trying to figure that out, and how close are you to identifying the individual?
I'm not. It doesn't really matter to me, but I'm just one person here. So what matters to me is that we have a fair and open process. And what matters to me is that everybody who breathlessly and religiously, small r of course, and indefatigably insisted on the Mueller process taking root and going on and on and on and on. Maybe not to the result that you predicted or wanted, but you being whoever that is, not you necessarily, but to the result that people expected or wanted, I would certainly hope that you want the full and fair process to happen here. And so that's what I'm most interested in. I'm most interested in fairness, and I think the letter from the Senate Republicans is new and it's consequential because they eventually will have to take up whatever the House decides.
Are you anonymous? Real basically why there is no quid pro quo, like why it's not a quid pro quo.
Well, many
and not
reasons.
Just because the president says
many reasons. Well, he didn't say it, even though some of you reported, and I know who you are. Some of you reported that there would be 8 quid pro quos. Because as long as the trolls on Twitter or the cable news cranks say it must be true, why would we independently report it? Or wait for the facts, wait to see the call transcript? So he never mentions 2020. He never mentions Biden as a political opponent. He never mentions aid. It is the Ukrainian president who mentioned, fake news, and mentioned draining the swamp, Merkel and Macron not helping. And he says, I ran on an agenda of anti-corruption. We all know he did. And then the Ukrainian president said he felt no pressure and that he didn't even know about he didn't even know about the status of the aid until after the fact. And they have it, and they're using it.
To have an abuse of power.
Does the larger context matter, like the other things that Giuliani was working on, or Sondland, or is it just the words in the call? And also, what about a meeting? Couldn't there be a quid pro quo about a meeting, which is a thing of value for the Ukrainian president?
Explain that.
Well, he really wanted a meeting. The president had sent him a letter promising him a meeting.
They just had a meeting. You all were there at UNGA. I mean, they can have a meeting anytime. He's newly
White
elected.
House Oval Office meeting, and the president had sort of promised that to him, and then again he asked about it on the call. The president says, Are you going to look America in the eye and seriously tell them that we're going to go through the extraordinary exercise of impeaching a president based on what you just said? I mean, America's not going to allow for that. Extraordinary exercise it is to impeach the president, to divide a nation. The Constitution talks about high crimes and misdemeanors for a reason. And this is done so sparingly
for a reason. If I would respect people more if they would just say, you know what, I don't like him, I didn't vote for him, I don't want him to be the president, I don't want him to be reelected. I would respect people more for saying that, saying I've been trying to find a way to get rid of him from the moment he shocked the heck out of me and got elected. I would respect people more than somehow this high-minded hijinks, this is about the Constitution and the Founding Fathers. I mean, the people lecturing us about the Founding Fathers and Constitution can't even get past the Second Amendment, it seems. Have a great day.